Actually, we'll do an exercise where you have to decide whether to use although, even though, but, however, and each time we'll have to rework the sentence a little bit, to get it. We'll practice it. And we'll use because. The C is a sound. Because. We use because to introduce a dependent clause to show the reason for something. Because it is convenient, we use email. We use email because it is convenient. So, because just introduces a clause that explains why we do something, the reason for something. And that's all you need to remember about that. So, let's do some practice. And I think these might be a little more difficult for us. These might be a little more difficult for us because we have so many choices that we can use. So if we make a mistake, we won't sweat it. That's an idiom. If I say don't sweat it, sweat is in perspiration. If I say don't sweat it, it means don't worry about it. Don't get upset. So if we make a mistake, no problem, don't sweat it. It's informal, very informal, very informal. Let's see, page 72, okay? And so we're going to start with let's see, we left off with Tim, right? So we'll start with Toy. We'll work our way this way. I'll do the first one. Mr. Gormit doesn't want a microwave. He knows microwaves save time. Now, I want to stop here and point out that we've got two sentences, but they're slightly different thoughts, right? They're slightly different thoughts. The first sentence says that Mr. Gormit doesn't want a microwave. He doesn't want to buy one. The second sentence says that he knows that microwaves will save time. So we've got two different thoughts here. Now, if we wanted to put those two thoughts into the same sentence, we would say, Mr. Gormit doesn't want a microwave even though he knows they save time. See what we're doing? So, Toy, do you want to try number 2?
Has a GPS system, even though she get lost all the time. Even though
We're going to say although. We could do that. We could say although Ms. Honig's car has a GPS system, comma, she gets lost all the time. Yeah, the comma, since we have an the clauses at the beginning of the sentence, we'll put a comma after the end of the clause. So we could say, although Mrs. Honig's car has a GPS system, she gets lost all the time. We could also say, even though. We could also do it this way. We could also say, Mrs. Honig gets lost all the time, even though her car has a GPS system. So see, we have several different ways we could do that. And that's why I say this exercise is going to be more difficult because we have so many choices. We have so many different ways of saying it. So I don't want us to get up, to get uptight if we get the wrong answer. Don't sweat it. It's not a problem.
Teacher, when used, even though we have to change the subject. Mrs. Holding gets a lot all the time, even though her class had a GPS system.
That's correct. Yeah, if we put the dependent clause at the end, we would want to start the sentence with the name of the subject, the actual name of the subject, and then we could put the pronoun in the dependent clause at the end. Correct. That's correct. And what was your first name, please? Sue.
Yeah.
Sue. Okay. Would you do the next one, please?
Mr. Wang doesn't have a laptop computer, even though he times travel consistently.
Correct. That's correct. Mr. Wang doesn't have a laptop computer even though he travels constantly. You would expect him to have. I mean, if a person travels constantly, you would expect him to have a laptop computer, but he doesn't. So we would say, Mr. Wang doesn't have a laptop computer even though he travels constantly. We could also say, even though Mr. Wang travels constantly, he doesn't have a laptop computer. That would also be correct. Very good. Yeah, we got that one right. So then now we're to number 4, Ma.
Digital camera automatically the instructions his time.
Okay. That's correct. That's correct. Sanchez is a Mexican name, a Spanish name, and we would pronounce that Sanchez with a CH. The Z is a CH sound. Sanchez. Sanchez. So Mrs. Sanchez can't operate her digital camera even though she read the instructions 3 times. Now, notice that I said read instead of read, because read is one of those irregular verbs where the present tense and the past tense looks the same. The spelling is the same, but we pronounce it differently. So we pronounce the present tense read. We pronounce the past tense read. So right now we are reading the book. Yesterday we read the book. Okay? And then number 5, your turn.
Mrs. Belcanto doesn't want a dishwasher, even though she has 6 children.
Correct. We could also say, even though she has 6 children, comma, Mrs. Belcanto doesn't want a dishwasher. The clause could go either at the beginning or at the end, but that's correct. You did well. Nat, you would be number 6.
Although Mrs. Galen refused to travel by plane, she had urgent business in another state.
That's correct. Mrs. Kane had urgent business, although Mrs. Kane had, no, I got it wrong. Although she refused to travel by plane, Mrs. Kane had urgent business in another state.
Although Mrs. Kane refused to travel by train, she had urgent business in another state.
That would work. That's good. That's correct. Let's see, number 7, Pew.
My house has central air conditioning. My house has central air conditioning. Although I prefer to use a fan when it.
Okay, that's correct. We've taken 2 sentences that have slightly different thoughts. In other words, when we read the first sentence and then we read the second sentence, we see that the second sentence is not what we would expect. So,
Teacher, in number 7, I think, although used in the beginning.
you could do that. You could do that.
It begin of the sentence.
What we could say is that although I prefer to use a fan when it's hot, no, what we could say,
Although my house.
I would say, what we could do is we could say, although my house has air conditioning, I prefer. That would be the way to say that. Let's see, Ben, we can do number 8.
Yes, my grandmother doesn't use email even though she has an email address.
Yeah. The alternative, what we could say is, although she has an email address, my grandmother doesn't use email. Okay? Yeah. We got the hang of it. That's an idiom, right? Idiom. Okay, let's see. Number 9, Kat.
Although DVD movies are very popular, I still watch movies on a video processor.
That's correct. We're getting them all right. You are star students. Star students. Very good. So let's make it a little bit more difficult, shall we? We'll make it a little bit more difficult.